Welcome, welcome. It's the first Friday of April. Time is just flying by this year already again. And I have a special guest. I don't have to do this one where I'm just talking to the camera. I get to talk to somebody else, and I'm so excited. So let me welcome Jake Calabrese.
Hello. Kind of freaked me out there about
Why?
April. About April. Just
Oh,
it's
I
like,
know.
wait,
Isn't
what?
that crazy?
Yeah. Like, wait, hold on. I kind of know that, but like when you say it like that, then it's like, okay.
I know. Every time I feel like that's how I probably open every one of these each month. Is like, can you believe that it's already this month? I'm going to have to get a new shtick.
Yeah.
But it's honest. It feels surreal that it's already April 7th and it's just.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts how fast it goes.
I know. We're both struggling with the camera stuff today, so let's just own it, right? I'm using this background because it's StreamYard still has this like green halo thing. Like, I don't know if they made their green screen update like too much or whatever. So I found a green background, so it's a little less.
Yeah,
and your camera went dark.
I'm normally much brighter. I mean, not necessarily intelligent wise. Yeah,
white.
But
so
yeah.
StreamYard, we're not very happy with your camera right now.
Yeah.
Update
if
they
you're
updated
watching
it. Diana and I've noticed it because it got updated about a month and a half ago, and it just hasn't been the same since. So I'm hoping that some new release or minor release is coming out soon. But
yeah, I guess who knows what they're. Let's make everybody different color, dim, light, green. Okay, cool.
That's fine. That's one of the dynamics that we can even talk about today is the technology when you're co-training. So today's topic, and why I have Jake. Well, honestly, I would have Jake in any conversation. So, but today's conversation specifically is on co-training. And a lot of people kind of make the assumption that co-training is that very like, okay, I will do my part and now I will finish. And Jake, will you take your next part?
Why?
And
Thank you, Trisha.
Oh, horrible. Co-training is not handoffs, right? Like true co-training is blending together and kind of giving this experience with multiple voices, but also delivery that feels seamless and not perfect, but just seamless. Like it shouldn't feel disruptive to the audience. Yeah. And I think so many co-trainers kind of come at it from I'll take this part, you do this part, and don't understand that that's not the best experience.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. We've played around with calling it even pair training, like kind of the idea of pairing on other stuff. And I think for the most part, you say that, and I actually said it to somebody yesterday, and they're like, "Wait, what did you say?" And they're like, "It just doesn't." People know this kind of idea of co-training, yet it's So I think it's interesting what people call it versus like what it is, because it is that seamless thing. How do you actually do that, like in a flow?
Well, I think people feel like it's safer. Right? I can control my part. I'll do my part. And then I do this handoff. And it might very well feel safer to you. It just does. Who's it for? You or the attendees, right? Like what experience are you really most concerned about, yourself or the others? But honestly, for me now, it doesn't even feel safe to do that. Like I don't even think it feels safe to do that. I'd much rather do like what we do on a regular basis.
It feels more awkward doing it the other way. It is though, like you might start that way too, right? I think like from a starting standpoint, like if you're just starting to work with somebody, you're like, all right, I'm going to take this piece, you're going to take that piece, but then you really want to work on the transition, right? Where like we tend to do a lot of stuff just completely informally, like this. But I do think like sometimes when people are, maybe they just haven't worked that much together, so they are doing that. So they're going to do a handoff, but then the handoff is just like, I'm done with module 1, you take module 2 or something like that. And we're talking training, but this could be a presentation. This could be like within your company doing something in front of
facilitating something.
Yeah, it could be any number of things. So I think like if you are new to that, maybe you don't know the other person even as well. you're just working on a little more of the transition. Hey, I'm gonna, and sometimes that feels very scripted, but it still can be a lot better where you're keying up a few words and then they take those few words and it leads into the, to the piece that they hop into.
So we co-train on a regular basis, and specifically lately for the Leading Amazing Teams course, which our next public one is in May. See that plug? See, Jake? See, I can do it sometimes, a little bit. And and we do it so often, and look, I have severe imposter syndrome, and I'm always critiquing myself, but there is a sense of pride, I think, now for me with how we co-train together and how we engage with, whether it's a conference speaking session, it's a training, right? And things, because just based on the sheer volume of feedback that we get, right? And just based on the sheer comments and experience that our attendees have, that I am really proud of what we bring to the table. And I do think we set a high bar when it comes to co-training. So I thought maybe we should have a little bit of a share behind the scenes, which we do anyways on a regular basis.
It's like behind the scenes.
Yeah. So this is, yes, behind the scenes. But to just share some of our tips or things that we do or things that we have found to be successful or really kind of lean hard into. And again, I'm putting us both on the spot because I don't know if I even really pre-thought of them either myself, but just things that we find really help us give the experience that we are shooting for, where attendees get to hear different voices, but feel that synergy, feel that connection, feel that power. So is there a tip that you think we do really well that we should highlight to other people that helps? And it might be an advanced tip. It might be a beginner tip. Who knows? But we'll see what comes out.
I think there's quite a few. I think there's like, I think there's kind of one thing that I think, maybe we cover some of the what would I call them? Like, there's I think one about how we interact with each other that I think is maybe something that I don't know if we start with that or maybe do that in a moment.
Yeah, let's start with it. Right. You went there. Now I'm excited. So let's go.
Well, I think so. As we've been doing, pair training or coaching down there. I am saying pair training, co-training. As we've been doing this for a while, I think like people were asking us questions, and I know I got a lot of questions about, well, how do you do it? Like, why is it actually working? Even people that maybe saw us in a class and worked with us, and they were like, wow, that was great. Like, any tips? And it was weird because I kind of had to go, like, what are we doing? Right. And so, we've talked about it a lot, but I think one of the things that we've realized as we dug into it is that, there's times when I might be talking, Trisha, John, you jump in and completely interrupt me. Completely. And both of us, I'll say, have a small problem with interrupting each other or people in general. But usually, at least we tell ourselves it's because we're excited about it. But if that happens, what we really realized is it was really like how I reacted, because I think so often, even if it's unintentional, the way that people are reacting is if Trisha jumps in and interrupts me, I would then go, well, hold on. Maybe I try to like uninterrupt, right? No, let me finish this or whatever I say, and vice versa if I interrupt her. And so what we realized was that one of the things we were just doing is that we weren't taking that as anything other than, hey, they thought of something or they're throwing something in, and we weren't reacting to it. So our lack of reacting to that happening actually made things flow. Right. It was like, I'm speaking, Trisha jumps in. Okay. And then Trisha's speaking, and then I might speak after that, but I'm not like, there's a disruption in that flow. And I think that to me, that still sticks with as like, I think the key piece, and there's different aspects to it.
Yeah. It's like we almost make it so that it does seem like one voice where it isn't an interruption because we don't react. Right. It's like, and sometimes it's for a quick joke one of us will play or different things, right? But but we've worked on the skill of not losing our train of thought, right? So that we can keep going, but also to make it seem like that's actually intentional to some degree, because as you said, we don't react. And I think that's part of like the letting go of the ego, right? Like letting go of the, I'm the one standing, I'm the one talking, no, we are creating that experience. And if you think there was something important to be said right then, say it, right? Because in some ways, there's been as many times where I was like, oh, that's an interruption, to going, oh, that was the best moment to say that. Right. Like, and honoring like what happens is meant to happen, and those dynamics that we feel connected to, where it's just, it does almost come off as one voice, not an interruption to the audience.
And that's always like it's fascinating to the point where we can be covering something and have both just interrupted each other 5 times. And one of the things we typically do in leading amazing teams is we actually talk about what we're doing in the class. Like, what do you notice? What's going on? And like, we've literally completely at a point where like, I was like, wow, that was kind of an interruption. Or she's like, we're both kind of like, we both just interrupted each other pretty like, maybe we didn't feel like it flowed well. And then we asked people, and like, I remember literally somebody said, it was like 2 minutes after that happened, we were talking about, what have you noticed? And somebody was like, you just flow together really well. Like, you never interrupt each other. And I'm like, we literally just interrupted each other, right?
Like 5 times in a row in a cycle.
Right. Like, as we're asking you the question about how the flow is, right? We interrupt each other, and then they're like, wow, there's never any interruptions. It's amazing how seamless it is. And I think that actually, it was those kinds of comments that I think led us to that part of, oh, like, we're not interrupting it, right? Like, like a pond, if you throw a pebble in there and it ripples, it's just like, oh, it's rippling. We're not like trying to stop the ripples, right? And I think that's and I think there's a lesson there too. If you're new to co-training, or you're co-training with somebody you don't know as well, I think there's a lesson there of even talking to them a little bit about this kind of concept. Hey, we might interrupt each other. We might need to throw a point in, and just even having that discussion in advance. When it happens, you're less likely to kind of go, react to it in the same way.
Yeah. Sherry actually pointed out this comment in the thing that seems to be a lot about trusting as well. Yeah. It's letting go of the ego. It's trusting that if Jake is incorporating something, or that I am, that he's making it better. Right. And maybe I did mess something up, or maybe I am not explaining something, or maybe I forgot something, or maybe it just spurred a thought, and like me, it goes here and then out here, like instantly. and so it's a matter of trusting and the ego. And I love that analogy of the ripple. Like, in my mind, I think I was thinking of it as just like honoring whatever needs to happen, but I like the idea of what's possible from whatever's happening too. And that's what made me think of that when you said that, is like, it isn't just honoring whatever's happening and not reacting. It's honoring what could be from that interaction. And I really think that that's powerful, and it's hard to do at times. Like it's it's hard to do. Like
we have plenty of stories.
Yeah, like we will bump into each other, and it's fine. Like, I mean, we talk about it, we engage about it, we figure out what was kind of bumping and things like that. But I will say, I don't know if ever, when we do bump into each other, that it's ever been like an ego thing versus a just how do we want to handle this going forward, kind of a dynamic of, we do have some virtual cues that we do, like we can step forward in the room. We can, like, if I do stand up and I'm on the side, Jake kind of knows that I might be wanting to incorporate something, where we stand in the room. But there's no right or wrong. So I don't even want to spend any time kind of going, well, if you stand up, that's the perfect virtual cue. Like, it's things that we've developed over time that kind of understand like how we're about to engage, and we can start reading that of each other really earlier, and understanding how that's going to play out.
Yeah. There's a give and take in, and this will sound probably maybe over the top for some folks. But if you've done any kind of facilitation or group kind of work, it'll make some sense. But like if one of us, oftentimes we're both standing in front of the room. So, and one person might be doing all the talking and the other person might add in a bit, or the other person might simply be standing there. And sometimes there'll be somebody in the back, somebody in the front, somebody in the back, something like that. So, but I think if somebody steps forward or somebody moves in to the space, it's almost like you could almost think of it like like a bubble. Somebody moves a little bit into that and it changes the bubble a little bit, like it presses in, like a picture a balloon and you kind of press in a little bit. And you just notice that. That doesn't mean that like I have something to say or Trisha has something to say, but you kind of might adjust kind of even where you are standing. And we do that a lot where like Trisha might be in the middle of the room. This happened a couple of weeks ago. We were doing a class up in Madison, and I was, for whatever, well, I know what reason. We haven't done a ton of in-persons, but I was noticing more about the physical space, and Trisha was standing right between those 4 tables, and she was right in the middle of the room. And I had been doing something, and I was walking up, and she shifted over, and like a lot of that's not conscious. We're just kind of doing that. But we're, there's some kind of like.
But I think the original conscious part of it was giving space, right?
Yeah, that original, right? It's oh, I'm standing, like it does it, where are people physically, in the room and interacting in that way.
I would actually say that was our hardest thing when we went virtual, because it's just harder in virtual space to not have those visual cues of when to engage and how to engage. And if one of us are ranting and either one of us can get on a soapbox, like there is nobody's business, right? And I think that and it still is hard, right? Visually, when we're trying to maintain the space in the remote thing, and then we're trying to give each other's, like I felt it just doing it last week. I was like, oh, this is so nice to be back in person. And it, as much as we hadn't done it in person in a while, it just, for me, it felt natural because we could use so many of those visual cues of the space and that dynamic. And it just flowed for me. It is much harder when we're virtual.
Yeah. And I do think the group we had was amazing, incredible. But generally speaking, that's usually the situation, because I worked with a different group last week in Georgia and solo, but that was an amazing group. So it's all of what the people are bringing into the place. And I think there's 2 other kind of more minor things that I was also thinking about was that, you have to make a decision on a regular basis of, do I need to make this point? Mm-hmm. And both of us suffer from, sometimes in hindsight, we might go, well, probably not. I think maybe, certainly I do. But also not talk, just not talking. And I think virtually, that was something I noticed about the in-person as well a couple of weeks ago, was that I didn't think about it as much, but in virtually, it's much easier to not say anything in a virtual environment where one is talking, one is not. But there was a number of times when we were both standing in front of the room and you were talking, and I was thinking, wow, I really haven't said anything in maybe 15 minutes. And it was like, my brain kind of was like, should I panic? Or, I was like, well, this is so, do I have anything to say? Right. And it's like, well, sure, I could say this or that, but it was really just like being okay, not saying anything. And I think that also is something that I think it's probably one of the reasons why a lot of times people then say, okay, I'm going to go over here and just sit down, like off to the side, right? Because it's like, it feels weird to stand up there and not talk, or not be like, you're just like, oh, that person's just standing there, whatnot.
So we got a question, and I can't always see all the questions that come sometimes, but sometimes some of them come up if it's on LinkedIn, because it's going live mainly on LinkedIn. Did we have a working agreement when we first started co-teaching, or did we sort of organically work it out? So we did co-build the class together, which I think helps with co-teaching, right? Like, so the fact that there wasn't any one part of the class that I built and was mine, and that there wasn't any part that Jake built that was his, I think in some ways it lent itself to us moving into co-teaching it because we co-built it a little bit easier. I think it's sometimes harder when one person builds it and then you try and co-teach from that, because the person who built it has a way in their head of how it's going to work and things like that. We definitely had we had a facilitation plan to a certain degree of like timings and things like that. But my version of facilitation plan is much lighter than I like just have time boxes and I'm like, yeah.
Well, my facilitation plans, like, I mean, and if you're getting approved for, if you're having somebody review your stuff to get approved for some cert or something like that, then there's usually some extra stuff. My approach for years has been, especially when I would be traveling constantly, was always, if I get in late and I don't feel good at all, and I didn't get any sleep, can I run this class well? And so there are times when that's happened to me, and I want to put all my energy towards interacting with the students, because like I'm basically like at 50%. So I want to give them the 50% or 45, and I want to give 5% to what am I supposed to do next? So if I literally forget, I can look and it says, do this stuff. But yeah, for this class in particular, but I think also like we do other things that we've done together that, whether it's a conference session or, other work with customers and stuff. And I would say I guess overall, we don't have one formally. But it does strike me that the class itself, like we cover that kind of like, that's a topic in the class. So I think there's some stuff where just even what we've kind of built around leadership, it's all about having an alliance or working through, challenges. And I mean, we've had some interesting, what do you want to call them? Conflicts. Yeah. I was like, battles, fight. But like, we've had stuff where even there was a student who like pulled me aside at lunch and was like, I need to talk to you about how you're talking to Trisha. And I was like, is this like reverse land? No offense to Trisha, but like there's a better chance. Like I feel like I'm like, what? Like how, like what's happening? Like you don't know, like this person that knows Trisha, right? And felt like I was like stepping on her toes. And I was like, that's weird, because like if Trisha felt like I was stepping on her toes, she would tell me. And if you know Trisha, you would know that. And that's weird. So then I said to the person, and I said, okay. And I listened to what they said, and I was completely confused because I was like, this doesn't like make any sense. And I said, well, we were heading back to the room. I said, let's go talk to Trisha. And I remember the person just kind of stopped and looked at me like, what? You want to bring this up to her? And I'm like, yeah, like actually we just covered the fact that like, I'm not going to be in some weird middle place. So we walked in and said, hey, Trisha, here's what's going on. And Trisha looked at both of us like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And, but then she was actually able to talk to the person about it. And like, no, this is like none, that stuff wasn't, I mean, there wasn't even anything there like to us. Right. But they were feeling something. So it was like, I'm not going to say, no, that didn't happen or whatever, but let's actually talk with Trisha about it at the same time, because, and so I think we have this kind of just general agreement of like, we're going to work through the stuff. And in that case, there was a student involved too. And props that you have students who are like, I got your back, right? I mean, that was awesome, right? So I was like, my first thought was, this is awesome. My second thought was, I'm totally confused. Right?
Well, and I think, I do think that's been our big working agreement as co-trainers and as friends and as colleagues and partners and in different ways, like, is that we don't just push things under a rug. We don't avoid the conversation. And not only do we have the conversations, we'll do that in front of the class. Yeah, we will openly kind of highlight that, because this is leadership. This is collaboration. This is working together with people. And and it isn't that it's all pixie dust and rainbows all the time. And honestly, I don't think I would want that. Like, because, when we do have these conflicts, it challenges me. There are times that I'm like, wait, why did I get upset about that? Like, I don't know. I have to process that. Right. And I think that having that trust, going back to the earlier comment, and the commitment to collaborating together and working through those things has made me stronger. And I'm grateful to Jake for that. I'm grateful to you for that. Right. And I'm a better leader. I'm a better trainer. I'm a better facilitator, I'm a better person because of our, not just successes, but our challenges. And that's the, power of pairing and the power of doing that, because I also think it helps a lot of people in the room. Like, there will be people who connect to me more. There'll be people who connect to you more. There'll be, and sometimes that's because of our, history or our roles or our rants and which rant we chose to talk about and things. But I think that that's the extra value that we deliver too, is that you get to see reality play out right there too.
Yeah, I think that there's been a number of times when that's that I think, we've seen people, they're like, you could see them kind of thinking, should I be thrown off by this? Like, hey, we just got in an argument, frankly, about this thing, and we're going to actually talk through what's going in front of the class. And we're not like I remember one case, and specifically, we had not figured out what the plan was. But like somebody asked somehow there was like enough of like the class was like, somebody was like, wait, what's going on? And so, all right, let's talk about what's happening with us right now. And so we actually just kind of exposed that and then kind of processed it with them. And I think, so I think that trust is, it's all those values, right? Like, have courage, right? Like, there's somebody who doesn't have courage and you go and say, have courage. And you're like, wow, I had never thought about just having courage. Now that you've told me, it's amazing, right? Like, come on. So I think that the trust part is, I definitely process things differently than Trisha and vice versa. And so I think there's times when, when Trisha's like, all right, let's talk about this. And I'm like right now, now at this point in time, if she doesn't want to talk about something right now, that's scarier to me than, right? Because I know you're going to be like, hey, let's talk about this right now. And we've even had times with some folks we've worked with, like, where her and I are in this pretty, I would say, heated discussion about something, and somebody like walks by and they try to, like, I don't know what the word is, manage us or something, or soothe us, or like,
it does not work out well for them.
Yeah, it doesn't work out well for that person. And we're looking at them like, what? We're fine. Like, let us go. And that's just like, and we're like, and then we're fine. But there's something about, and I think that over time has built the trust, right? Because I don't, even coming on here, like, what's the agenda? And it's like, part of it is like, frankly, to show co-training, it's almost like not having one makes sense, which I don't know that was either of our plan. But if somebody else asked me to be on a live stream, I generally would ask some more questions. Can you tell me a little bit about a few of the topics, or just a little bit? I don't need, script or anything, but
you're making me think of, and maybe we're already at time. See, God. But I think you're making me think of the point that I think I want to end on, because I want to compliment you on being able to do this and stuff, is like, at the end of the day, you're co-trained, you're trying to create that synergy, but you're also wanting that person to be their authentic self, and honoring that person and what they bring to the table, and what, you're both their biggest cheerleader, your challenger, right? Like, there's all these different dynamics to it. But if you try to go into co-training going, okay, this is how this person does it, so I'm going to do it exactly like they do it. Right. It's not going to be authentic. And it's honestly not. Synergy isn't about making clones. Synergy is about feeling like it's a connection. And so when I'm co-training, I want people to be their authentic self. And even if that feels like a different vibe, it can work as long as you're supporting each other and you're creating that space for each other. And so I will say that that's one of the things you do incredibly well with that, is, in fact, maybe too much sometimes, to where I'm like, no, that's not even true what you're saying about me, Jake. Like, I won't even believe what you're saying.
But I think,
like in a positive way, not
right, yeah. Clarification in a positive way. But I think that's part of that's like if you're truly working with somebody, you build a level of trust. We talk about mentorship and mentoring, and you always talk about somebody who maybe you've learned from. A lot of times it comes up informally and you don't know. And I know I was working with this person, a VP up in Chicago, and we were doing a class, and they had said Jake's a mentor of mine, and I really was taken aback. I was like, and then I was like, okay, that does make some sense. But the weird part was that I felt like that she was a mentor of mine, and I said that, and then she was taken aback, and you probably see where this might be going. But like, I feel like that. You're saying, hey, you're appreciating some things, but like, I feel like working with you, right? You've been a mentor to me on a lot of things that I haven't been as good at, as strong at. And whatever it is, if it's like, this isn't going well, you're like, great, let's talk about it. And I remember the first 700 times you did that. And I was like, seriously, we have to talk about it right now. Right. And now it's like, even if I hear something going on with you and somebody else, and you're like, and I can hear it. It's like, wait for it. And you're like, hey, we should talk about this, right, with somebody else. And I could see their face because it's only time 400 or whatever. But you just have that ability to just do that. And I feel like, that's part of where some of the trust gets built, is by going, oh, I respect what you're bringing to this. I respect what you're bringing to this. And we kind of build on that, because I wouldn't be able to do what I do today without you, right? And that's so we haven't cried yet, which is pretty good.
So we're going to stop here, because now it's starting to stop. We've moved from it's all related to coach training, but it's a hot mess. So Jake, do you have any upcoming publics that you want to highlight?
I've got an advanced certified Scrum Master. I think both of us actually.
We both have one this month. Awesome.
Yeah. So that, and then leading amazing teams, we have in May, and then we have one also in September. May 2nd. Yeah. And
the next one won't be to the fall. So definitely get on to one of our sites and check that out. There's still some seats left in that with those.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, there's some other ones, Scrum Master, Product Owner, some things like that are coming up, some of the standard stuff.
And what website can they go to for you?
They can go to the word improve, helpingimprove.com.
See, look at I can do it when it's
that's good. Yeah.
It's just not my own.
It's we used to have a long thing where we wouldn't ever promote anything we were doing.
I know. I make Jake do it.
Yeah.
That's the other tip. Find yourself a co-trainer that will do the parts you don't want to do too.
That's a pro tip there. Yeah, that's
pro tip. That's the advanced pro tip. I also have our next Live for Lead Without Blame. The book I co-wrote with Diane Larson is scheduled for May 12th. We did a live this morning. And so the next one will be May 12th coming up for that. And then I will be at Scrum Gathering coming up in May. And I will be at TechWell in June. And then Agile 2023 in July.
And I'll be there too.
You'll be at which one?
Agile 2023 in Orlando in July.
It's conference season coming up. So if you see us, please come say hello, talk to us. We love it. That is that's a main reason I go to these conferences, to connect with people. So definitely make sure to say hi. And thanks everybody for joining this April Live.
Have a good weekend.